Yo, before we start today's video, added some new stuff to the stew. Some greenery. Just makes it feel better in here. Sets the mood, sets the vibe for the place. Yeah, I know I just made a studio tour video the other day, but I wanted to kind of like show some little upgrades, if you will, quote unquote. But yeah, it's kind of cool. So that is what's going on in this place right now. But anyways, let's get into today's video. Hey guys, what's up? My name's Grant Borland, and today I kind of want to take a look at some of my favorite string libraries for creating textures. There's a lot of string libraries out there that do numerous things, but I kind of want to show you some of my favorite libraries for creating textures that add something very moody to music. A lot of times I'll write music and I'll want like organic strings to kind of like ebb and flow underneath pianos or whatever else I have going on. These are some tools I really like using for that sort of thing. I want to kind of do a breakdown of, my top maybe 4 favorite libraries that handle this kind of thing. It'll be kind of a quick little overview of each library. I'm not going to go in like super depth into each one because this video will become very long, and I feel if I were going to do something like that, I would rather hyper focus on like one specific library and show you everything within it. This is just going to be kind of a general overview of some tools I like to go to a lot when I'm looking for something that's just kind of there to set the mood in a track. So let's dive into Logic real quick. We will go through and we will take a closer look at all these tools. So first one we're going to start with is something called Cello Untamed by a company called Westwood or Westwood Instruments. And this library's been out for a little while. They've actually got a few other string libraries in their collection or in their series. They've got a violin, which I have. They've got the cello. I think that they have a viola. I'd have to double check on that, but the violin and the cello are the ones I personally have right now, and I use them both quite a bit, but I want to highlight the Cello Untamed. It's just made up of 2 patches, just the random improvisations and then just the standard Cello Untamed contact file. So we'll start with the random improvisations, and this is a solo cello library. I mean, there's other cello libraries out there, but this is pretty unique because it's more of like based around performances around a note as opposed to playing something. How would I describe it? Like, this isn't going to be like a solo instrument that has like legato patches. It's not going to sound like normal cello libraries. This is going to sound very much of like a textural kind of thing, so it'll sound a little wonky, I guess is the word, which is cool because I like adding that kind of thing underneath music I'm writing. So let me just do a quick little playthrough so you can kind of hear what it sounds like. I do have a bus right now with a little bit of reverb. I'm just using the Black Hole by Eventide, so I've just got that on a bus. So that's the reverb you're hearing. If I turn that off, it'll just sound like this. So pretty dry, which is great too. I mean, it's a good library to keep dry as well. There's, microphone positions and stuff too, so you can kind of tailor that to your own liking, but this is kind of what it sounds like just out of the box without messing with any of the settings. Looks like they've got saturation, they've got some tools for creating width, and they've got their built-in reverb too, as well as a little EQ. So pretty basic, GUI, but it's kind of all the tools you need anyways for this kind of thing. So I think it sounds cool. Some of these notes and like the way they're performed, it reminds me of the soundtrack to Detroit Become Human. There's a lot of cool cello textures on that soundtrack, and so it kind of gives me that similar vibe. So I like that one a lot. I'll pull up just the Cello Untamed patch, which is pretty similar to the random improvisation patch, but just so you can kind of hear that too. reverb sounds nice too. But yeah, that's kind of the overview of Westwood Instruments Cello Untamed. Let's move on to something more of a little chamber ensemble, and the next one I would recommend is Olafur Arnalds Chamber Evolutions. This is built by Spitfire Audio. It's broken up into a few sections. So you've got your grid and your waves. If you're familiar with like Spitfire Audio's products, they have this thing called the grid, which gives you all these like little I don't even know, they remind me of pegs kind of, all these like little pegs that you can randomize, and it'll add like, different sounds and different textures. So like, for example, I can hit this little thing next to Evo and it gives me, ways to kind of randomize and get unique results. So I can kind of do like a subtle thing, or I can make something more dissonant, episodic. So, let's go ahead, let's just try subtle. Play around with that, and this is going to sound more of like a chamber ensemble, so it's not going to be like a solo instrument. It's going to sound more like a bigger string section, for those that don't know. So I'm just going to play a few things on the grid, and you can kind of see how this sounds. That's the thing, like I'll hold down a chord and you can just listen to how like each player together, it kind of just ebbs and flows, which sounds really cool. It's like a nice texture to have underneath in your music, and that's kind of what this video is about, is those type of textural libraries that really add something special, rather than just like a sustain or a long patch in other string libraries. This is a little bit more different. I mean, it's a nice sound. It sounds realistic. It adds that nice organic feel to a piece of music. Play some other chords. Let's randomize it with like the dissonance. So I like using this a lot actually. If I'm like writing something that has a little bit of tension in it, randomizing it with these types of things. So notes are kind of gotta weave and sound a little bit more dissonant. It almost sounds like things are kind of shifting out of tune when I play chords, which is really cool for this kind of thing. Which you'll hear what I mean. There's just like something that's a little off about that, and I think that's really cool. That's really useful. I've used that on a numerous amount of tracks. A lot of trailer stuff too, actually. Some of the more custom stuff I've done, I've used that patch, in the intros and things like that. Just something that makes the music sound a little bit uneasy and makes you feel a little on edge. I think it's a really useful patch. So let's move on to the other section of their library, which is the waves. And waves is kind of just like it's a wave of sound. It's almost like a crescendo, and then it kind of just like, tails off. But it sounds like very natural. That's the thing. That's the thing I like a lot about the waves patch, is it sounds natural. Like I could pull up a long string patch and maybe use the modulation wheel to kind of fade in and out, but there's something about these live recordings that just sounds so realistic and convincing to my ear that I can't help but to just use it all the time. Let me just show you what it sounds like. fades out. And there's different speeds. This is the longest wave, but you know, I could do a short one too, which sounds like this. I have a cool chord. Just so beautiful. So it's cool that they give you a few different speeds, and that's something I like to put underneath things. So that's a wave, but it's kind of got that like jittering sound of, you know, vibrato. Same with the tremolos. Absolutely beautiful. And you know, there's different speeds for those types of sounds as well. So really useful. Between the grid and the waves, there's just so much texture you can add to your music. This isn't the kind of library that's going to be good for fast string passages. Like if you're writing action music or something like that and you need those like quick spiccato and staccato patches, this is not going to be good for that. This is kind of like focused on one type of thing, but it does it very well, constantly being used in a lot of my music. Moving on, let's go on to another library by Spitfire Audio called Albion Tundra. And Tundra was kind of marketed at being this like very quiet sounding library, which is good because there's lots of cool textural stuff too. Like it sounds very cinematic to my ears, and there's such a wide variety of articulations too, which just makes it so unique as opposed to anything else on the market. There's just something about texture that Spitfire Audio does very well, which is why I feel like I'm always dropping money on their stuff. But let's just start with this patch I have pulled up in Tundra. This is in the strings high section, the soft and wild. Just a lot of cool stuff. It's very airy sounding, like just such a nice tone. It's just good to keep underneath stuff too. Like if you have a patch like that going, it's kind of almost like a harmonic patch in a way. You know, you just play like a chord or a note or whatever and kind of just use that modulation wheel to add a little bit of dynamics to it. Play piano over that, or add, you know, some solo string instruments or whatever, and before you know it, you just have a piece that just sounds like it's, you know, ready for the films or whatever. Let's just pull another patch, other harmonics. So let's just play something out of there. I like the reverb that they have built into this, but let's add a little bit of the black hole to it. how many other string libraries are really doing like textures and sounds like that? Like, really not that many, and it's just so useful for adding texture to your music. It's just built different. Alright, let's move on to the last one I have, which is another Spitfire audio one. This is a newer one. They recently released this, and it's, you know, new to my collection too, so I'm still kind of going through it and finding patches I like. We dive into this section called The Elders in Albion Solstice. There are these EVOs, which are really cool too. I mean, they've got, you know, a lot of traditional string articulations, but these EVOs are cool too because they're very, very good for textural stuff. So let's just listen to this. This is EVO 1 Unstable. Just perfect for that like uneasy tension. You know, if you have music going and then you just have this creeping underneath it, like it might even be like a subconscious thing to a listener, but they're like kind of starting to lean on the edge of their seat, like something's going down, something is not right, and it's really cool. This is definitely more similar to that dissonant patch in the chamber evos, the grid. It's kind of what it reminds me of, but it just sounds a little different too. Kind of fades out, like some of those notes sound a little bit wrong, and it's beautiful. Let's try EVO 2. There's kind of just that like kind of sound underneath that. I don't know what that was, but that sounds so cool. Just so fun to play with. One more. Let's just do EVO 3 Fractured. Let's see what this sounds like. There you go, Albion Solstice. Alright guys, well I hope that was interesting and useful. Like I said, these are all really good for adding like string textures underneath your music. And these are 4 of my current favorites that I seem to be using in a lot of my music. So yeah, if they sound cool to you, go ahead, pick them up. Like Spitfire Audio, they make up most of these, and then Westwood Instruments is the other one I like to use a lot. So maybe browse their websites and listen to some of their demos, and maybe pick one of them up if you think it'll be useful for your music. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.